What's going on, Johnny Nation? Welcome to episode 197 of the Eye of the Storm podcast. My name is David Barham, and St. John's has won their first round game in the NCAA tournament for a second straight year. The talk since Selection Sunday was seeding and location. Well, the 5-seed Red Storm took on the 12-seed Northern Iowa Panthers in San Diego on Friday night, and thanks to a 13-0 run to open the game, well, it was over as soon as it started. Behind a balanced scoring attack that saw 9 guys tally points, the Johnnies used, well, one of, or probably their best first half of the year to set the tone and knock off Northern Iowa 79-53. When I previewed this episode a few days ago, I mentioned how St. John's would have to get out the gates hot. They would have to set up that press. They would really have to establish their pace. The last thing that you really wanted was to play slow and let Northern Iowa get comfortable. Well, St. John's did just that. The hot start that we saw in the Big East tournament, well, they got on the plane and they traveled to the West Coast as well. Justin, it was an aesthetically pleasing first half, a clash of styles that had one team imposing their will and the other team unable to get the ball inbounds down 20-3. We knew going into this game that Northern Iowa didn't have the horses. I said that, a lot of people were trying to make it sexy. They thought, you know what, I'm looking for that 12-5 upset. Well, I told you guys when you're filling out your brackets, don't pick this one because, it just wasn't in the cards. The Johnnies get a 26-point win and really controlled it from the jump. Your thoughts on the first round win? Northern Iowa really, they tried to put up a fight there in the second half, got as close as 13, but never anything closer than that.
I'm not a gambler by nature. I'll dabble at the craps table or play poker games that I feel like I have some semblance of control over in terms of my betting patterns and things like that. And I don't touch sports betting because I just never can predict these things. But I had no doubt going into last night's game that St. John's would not only win, but cover. And the reason is because although everyone talked about Northern Iowa's defense, and their defense was pretty good, they had never played an opponent like St. John's all year. And I just knew that the size and athleticism, especially up front, was going to create open looks for the guards, which you saw a lot, especially in the first half, and that they would do it just enough inside to make things very, very difficult. And on the other side of the ball, St. John's defense I knew would be stifling, and that Northern Iowa was going to be shell-shocked when they saw the speed and the athleticism at which they play. And so to say the game was over within the first 3 minutes, I don't think is an overstatement. I don't think Northern Iowa had any real shot of coming back in this. And this is what you expect from a team that was preseason number 5, slighted arguably by their 5th seed in this tournament. They did just what they had to do to impose their will, win this game, and in certain ways get ready for Kansas by being able to rest Zuby and rest some of the other guys who didn't have to play 38 minutes to win this one going away.
It's funny. If you've been locked into the start of the tournament from Thursday on, you've heard some coaches say some really funny stuff mid-game, after the game, during in like the huddles. Kevin Willard said that he was going to fire his entire staff in the middle of the game. A few coaches have invoked a higher power asking for help. I believe it was Cal Baptist, the coach, yesterday during the Kansas game, when asked, like, how do you stop Darren Peterson? And he said, we're going to need a divine intervention or something like that. So it's been really funny. And then, I say that because all week, everybody's filling out brackets. There's a million YouTube videos. There's a million shows. Everybody's doing these predictions. And like the 5-12 has always been like a sexy pick. And
we already had a number 5 go down in Wisconsin. So this is not uncommon.
First of all, Wisconsin High Point, what a game, 83-82. I forget the name of the kid, but man, a legend already who was shooting from the logo. I mean, just incredible. I think as soon as he hit the shot, I think I said, I'm like, well, there's your first 10 seconds of one shining moment, because that kid was a legend. But people are going into it trying to like pretzel brained their way into a way that St. John's would lose this game. And it's just you gotta watch basketball, man. Like you gotta watch. You can't make these predictions if you haven't watched these teams. And you can't tell me that a Northern Iowa team that hasn't played a high major opponent literally all year, that has not been able to score the ball because they play so slow, would be able to keep up with St. John's unless a UConn situation where you go 0 of 24 somehow happens. Like that's literally the only way that I could have seen them lose that game. And right out of the gate, Justin, it was the the pressure causing problems, which we said was going to happen, and the hot starts from the Big East tournament continued. Justin, in the last four games, St. John's has started 40 and 0. 40 and 0. That's crazy because it's just first of all, we've talked about slow starts throughout the year, right? Like, how many times did we open a show talk about, my God, like, how do you get off so slow? And then you got to fight so hard, use so much energy to get back into the game. But man, since the start of the Big East tournament and even the Seton Hall game before that, because of how dominant they were throughout that game, in the last four games, Justin, of a possible 160 minutes, St. John's has led for 158 and 16 seconds of that time.
They're learning to play with a lead. So earlier in the year, and you just said it, they found ways to crawl back into games, claw their way back, and won many, although not all. But we remember the Iowa State game. They blew a lead in that one. It was not the first and only lead they would blow this year. I don't even want to talk about the game at home against Providence. That's now in the rearview mirror. But what you're seeing now is a different set of focus from these guys. They're coming out of the gate hot. They are imposing their will from the minute the ball tips off, and then they're learning to play with a lead. You knew UConn was going to make a run in the Big East tournament. They did, and then St. John's immediately bounced back and pushed the lead back
Yeah.
up. Same thing happened in this game in the second half. Now, I think that if you had to grade it, the first half was an A+. It was
Mhm.
maybe the best half of basketball I've ever seen this team play.
I no, I listen. I think we're a little bit prisoners of the moment. Like I said this last night too. I was like, I think that might have been like their best first half. But like, look what they just did against UConn. Like that was a great half. The Creighton game that I cited was really important going into this
Yes,
game stylistically. That was a great half. But like, I think probably top three, for
that's
sure
fair.
this year.
But
And
second,
to say that in the NCAA tournament, you have to be feeling great.
well, that's just it. And knowing that this was a team that plays good defense, holding teams to 61 points a game, and St. John's put up 79. At one point, I thought they were going to get 60 in the first half, which I mean, I know I was getting a little bit ahead of myself,
Against the
but
team that only gives up 62 a game.
that's right. And the reality is it was on both sides, right? Because listen, credit to Northern Iowa. They were able to pack the paint in a way that really disrupted St. John's
Mhm.
after the first 5 minutes. For the next 35 minutes of the game, St. John's had a lot of issues getting easy baskets in the paint. By that point, it was already 20-3, and the game was well out of hand. So credit to them. They actually, I couldn't, and I'm actually going to throw it over to you. What was it that was so difficult? And in other words, I couldn't really pick up on it. I was really paying attention to what Northern Iowa was doing on the defensive side of the ball. I wasn't even looking at the score, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was that was so stifling. But it was. They did a very good job, but by then the game was over.
Are you're saying what was so stifling that St.
About
John's
the
was doing?
Northern Iowa defense inside, because again,
Oh,
we can
well,
talk about Zuby having
yeah,
a
we
good,
will.
but we'll
Yeah.
get to that. But like the interior game was not as dominating as it usually is
Well,
because they packed the paint.
that's what the pack line defense does.
Yeah,
That's literally their whole MO is that they want to try to get you to shoot it to beat them, and it challenges you. It challenges you, and I thought that early on, St. John's. You're going to hear it from Rick Pitino here in a second because I thought that St. John's was ready to go from three. I think I cited in the previous show like St. John's is a better shooting team on the road. You got to see if that translates, and it did yesterday, especially early on, starting 6 of 9 from deep. But I do want to go back to Selection Sunday really quick. Justin, you and I were there. From Selection Sunday until yesterday, you have all that time to start prepping for the game. Now, you have about 20, 20, maybe 30 hours between yesterday's end of game, factoring in some sleep, barely, and getting ready for Kansas. I'm actually going to get into a little bit of what's going to be happening prep wise because I spoke to some people, but I want to set something up because Rick Pitino yesterday said that the staff, how much work went into getting ready for Northern Iowa, I thought was really, really interesting. So let's take a listen to what Rick said after the game and how much work went into the game plan for St. John's.
Well, our guys did a tremendous job. The coaches were, including myself. We watched about 12 films of these guys, and the players watched about 5. And we knew what we had to do to win this game. The obvious thing is we had to get our tempo. And we said, look, although we're not the greatest three-point shooting team, we had to win the three-point line. So we had to stop it, choke it down, and make our threes. And tonight, obviously, it was 30-9 from the three-point line, which was big. Rebounding-wise, it was 45-29. Bryce Hopkins, to my right, is playing great basketball right now. He just does all the little things that are making us win. Played a lot of minutes. Zuby got a lot of rest, so he's ready for the winner of this game.
So, I mean, Justin, Rick says they watched 12 games. The players watched about 5. They knew that they had to beat them on the three-point line. That's what he was stressing the entire time. And actually, I want to go back to Rick here also because he said something. And listen, Rick says a lot of things. So let's say I don't know if I necessarily believe him on this one, but I think it was interesting as well. Here's Rick Pitino saying he's personally never watched more film on an opponent than the Northern Iowa Panthers.
I don't think I've ever watched more film on an opponent myself than this team. We were really concerned about this game because of their pace. And I played them twice with a championship team, and it was tough to beat them. And then in the Bahamas, we beat them by 5. If you allow them to control their tempo, they can beat anybody. We didn't allow them to control tempo. We got out there off our defense, and that was the key to the game. They're much better than this final score. So we were overly concerned. Now, you only have one day to prepare. So it changes. In the Big East, it's not as difficult because we knew all those teams. Now we got to watch this, and we've got to really cram hard because preparation is the key to our defense.
Justin, your thoughts on how much they got ready, and now saying that they're gonna have to cram on one day's rest basically to get ready for Kansas. But your thoughts on the game plan of how St. John's looked yesterday, and just more so, to me, why I'm so confident right now, especially going into Kansas, is my God, does this team look connected? This team looks really confident, and you didn't really see too many lulls yesterday against Northern Iowa. I thought that gives me confidence as well. They just looked great. And again, you did that with Zuby Ejiofor playing like a C-graded game, in my opinion.
They executed the game plan to perfection. Yeah, they only shot 34% from 3, but most of those 6 for 9 to start the game, really just showing you that they knew how to beat this Northern Iowa team. They wanted to impose their will on the defense and make it difficult for Northern Iowa to shoot the 3. They did that. Northern Iowa goes 3 for 14 from 3. They never hit any clutch shots that you said, oh, that's the one that's going to get them back in the game. None of that. They hit a couple of shots. I mean, it's going to happen when you take 57 of them, but they never got in stride on the outside, and they don't kill you on the glass. Northern Iowa wants to get back on defense. They don't want to crash the boards like we do. So when a shot went up, you had St. John's 3-4 guys under the basket, and then you would run in transition as best you could. You knew Northern Iowa would get back. But the way that St. John's moved the ball and the way that they clearly expected the defense to come out the way they did and just move the ball to get either Darling going to the basket or Hopkins going to the basket or Oziah Sellers, who, by the way, had a phenomenal first half. I know Rick had comments about him. We'll get to that. But the execution was perfect. And has Rick watched more of Northern Iowa than anyone else? I will call that artistic license. Rick Pitino has watched a lot of college basketball. But I will say, don't think that they just are starting to prepare.
Yeah.
for Kansas, right?
So
Like they've been looking at Kansas since the minute they were announced as the 4 seed in this bracket.
So let me give you guys some insight because I spoke to a bunch of college basketball staffers, from assistant coaches to GAs to managers, and like kind of how this process worked. Because Justin, you and I were there. We were in the gym. We brought our kids. We brought our families. We wanted to experience it together. I thought it was nice. And besides obviously the glitches at during the announcement, which sucked, and
When
everybody
do we play
thinking,
Hofstra? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, exactly. Hofstra, who just got bounced, unfortunately, but which is really actually interesting because I just saw a report from Newsday that said that Preston Edmeade and Cruz Davis saying that they're going to come back to Hofstra next year. The two names that a lot of people are saying could be in line for big paydays in the NIL world. We'll see what happens with that. But Justin's right. The prep work, not only for Northern Iowa, started on Selection Sunday. Immediately, the work started for a potential Kansas game as well. The way that this kind of works out for everybody who's curious, and you might have seen videos from Selection Sunday after it was announced. There was Steve Masiello had folders in his hand. He was giving them to Rick. Rick was getting ready for his TV hits and things like that because he's going to get asked about Northern Iowa right away. The way that it's usually broken down is that the staff and the GAs and the managers are getting ready for about 12 to 15 different scenarios. They are ready for multiple types of opponents, and they're going to get basics down, right? Just basic stats, basic tempo types, basic how they play, some players to watch for, things like that. Because most of the time, especially when you're a 5 seed, that 12 seed you're not familiar with, it's going to be somebody from an MVC type of a conference. But from there, from about 7:30 on, obviously clear your schedule, tell the kids and the family you're not seeing me for a couple days because it's lock-in time. The staff gets ready, everything is broken down: offense, defense, special teams, and each guys are assigned to at least a team and a portion. Then the GAs and a lot of the managers are starting to cut tape. They are cutting tape until the wee hours of the morning. I'm talking about like against Omaha last year, our GAs were working, going to bed at 5, and we're getting up at 7 in the morning to continue to get ready. That is the type of work that it takes to get ready in March. You heard Travis Ford, who was on the show about a week ago, talking about like the prep work and how much he missed that type of grind work. Well, hey, coach, you don't got to miss it too much. Breaking news a few days ago, our guy Travis Ford is back. He is the new head coach of the Little Rock Trojans. So congratulations to Coach Ford. But that's the work that goes into what is going on right now. And yes, the prep work for Kansas started already last Sunday. Frankly, might have started a little while back before that. And I think that's kind of just really important of how much work goes into it, how much guys behind the scenes are doing. So, all right, Justin, the more about this game, more about the fast start, because Rick had something else to say about that. He said that, it was really important because the transition play was vital. And St. John's getting off to that 13-0 start really closed kind of any kind of hope for Northern Iowa. Let's listen to Rick.
Yeah, I think they're really focused at the defensive end, and that gets them out on the break. Tonight on the break, we didn't have a lot of fast breaks, but we were 8 for 10. And we shoot an incredible percentage on the break because we're good athletes. We handle it well. And the first half we got out on the break consistently off our defense. So, I'm a big proponent of stopping the three, making the three. If you can have a disparity, and we all know that that's not something we've been great at all year. But when you can come into the tournament and go 30-9, it's a hell of a night. And more so stopping it. Making it was great, but stopping it's really important for any basketball team. You have to stop it. It's a weapon that everybody's passing up twos to take threes.
All right, Justin, the game, just starts. Johnny start 4 or 5 from the floor. The press was forcing mistakes right away. I don't know if you noticed this, but Northern Iowa's head coach burned through most of his timeouts within like the first 8 minutes of the entire first half.
I'll tell you a funny story about that. I said to my daughter at one point, they're going to call a timeout here, and they did. And I thought it was the second timeout they called. And she goes, no, Dad, it was their third. He's like, how many did they have for the game? And I almost didn't believe her, right? Because I was just shocked that they had burned through them so fast. But you could see the wheels had already come off, and they were desperately trying to stop that from happening. But it was funny because I've never seen a coach burn through three so fast.
Yeah, they were they were really miffed. I mean, 13-0 to start, then it was 16-2, Sellers hits a three. The defense by Mitchell and Zuby were giving them hell. And like we said this coming into the game. So like I don't want to like belabor the point, but again, I go back to like everybody trying to like predict St. John's losing this game. It's like how when you got these guys that are just absolute freaks of nature. I mean, Zuby blocking everything. Mitchell was it couldn't even like you couldn't get the ball inbounds. It was 20-4 after a layup. Rick is screaming at lefty up 16 with 11:58 to play.
That was that. You want to talk about the moment of the game? That was it. You are up by 7. I think it was 20-3. Maybe it was 20-4, but whatever it was, they're up 16 or 17 points within 3 minutes. Yeah. The defense is everywhere. They're throwing the ball into the stands. They're kicking it off their feet. Like, I've never seen a start like this. And Rick Pitino looks like they're down 10, laying into lefty. I'm like, there's just no chance they lose this game. Like, if there was any doubt, watching Pitino look as if they're down by 10 with, it was over. But that is what the attention to detail that is necessary to be a team that goes to a Final Four. You need that attention to detail because let's be honest, Northern Iowa, kudos to them. They had a very good season, did well in their conference tournament.
Yeah.
First round, good teams expect to win. Second round, all bets are off. Now, everybody you play is a very good, if not great, basketball team. And obviously, we'll look ahead to Kansas. But that moment, watching Rick scream at lefty, it was just, I mean, it was beautiful to watch in its own sadistic way.
I'm chronically online, right? I would give up pretty much air before I gave up Twitter. And like, it's funny seeing the people that clearly haven't been locked into St. John's and or Rick Pitino all year or are just like fans of other conferences. And we're obviously watching CBS last night and saw Rick just ripping the staff. I mean, it was not the staff, I'm talking about the players. It was 32-13. Zuby got a three, then a block, and then Sellers hits his third three of the half. Northern Iowa went on a little 7-1 run. St. John's responded with a 7-0 run themselves. Hopkins was great towards the end of the first half, scored 8 of his 11 points in the last 5:36. And I thought Ruben was great too. We'll get to him in a second. But they're going into the tunnel, and Rick Pitino is up. They're up by 19 points. And Rick is ripping the guys going into the tunnel. And I see all these people, they're like, whoa, why is he so mad? Why, like, is this the best strategy going into halftime? And it's like, guys, welcome to the show.
It was St. John's basketball. It was Rick Pitino in a nutshell, and I love it. Listen, there's a time for celebration. Celebrating a little bit after the Big East tournament. I totally get it. Job well done, fellas. This is March Madness.
Yeah.
Now you're playing Kansas. Duke is looming. There's no time for celebration because these basketball teams will kill you if you make mistakes.
Yeah.
There's no lack of effort. There's none of that stuff. It's time to play some basketball. And so that is why Rick has that intensity because he knows what it takes to make a Final Four to win a national championship.
I thought Zuby, Sellers, and Hopkins really were great in the first half. 11-17 from the floor. They scored 31 points with the three of them. Six shots from deep. Zuby hit 3. Sellers obviously hit 3 of them. Hopkins hit 1. Like that was really I thought that was huge. Again, the team has been struggling to shoot from threes, and Northern Iowa does not give up threes. They give up 28% shooting from threes. So St. John's, I mean, Rick talked about it, and you could hear from it, man. The importance of the three-point line was huge. St. John's outscored Northern Iowa 30-9 from long range, and that's not something that they've done this year. So again, when we talk about this team not being a good shooting team, a lot of it points back to Madison Square Garden. You're not going to be at the Garden in this tournament. So if this kind of continues, that is huge. Justin, did you know this? That the 19-point halftime lead is tied for the biggest in program history, and the 47 first half points equals an NCAA program record for a first half, which was set on March 20th, 1993 against Arkansas. So again, I think that first half really set the tone. Fantastic. And then you knew, I don't know if you knew, but like Northern Iowa did come try to punch back. They came energized. You knew that they had nothing to lose. You got to throw something. And they opened the half on a 10-2 run. Zuby picked up, got to the line and made it 49-36. I'm like, that's the closest that they would get. Again, St. John's has done this thing, especially the last like about month and a half, 2 months, where they've really responded really well to other teams' runs. They scored 6 points after that to calm things down. It was 53-38. And then, just they chipped away, and St. John's just, it was funny. My wife's watching it, and she's like, "Oh, it's 13." And
Hmm.
I'm like, relax, like we got it. And then, it was a really nice pass from Mitchell to Prey, made it 57-40. And the Johnnies, who started 1 of 8 from the floor at half, made like 3 shots after that and got it back to 17. Bryce Hopkins, I thought, continued playing a really, really good game. Again, second half was important. I thought Josan Sanin hitting back-to-back threes was really good. Ian Jackson had a really good second half too. Finished with 9 points all in the second. The three that he hit plus a really nice alley oop, that was kind of like an exclamation point to Mitchell on the game. Johnny's win 79-53. Just putting a little bit of a bow on things. Steve Masiello told the New York Post, we played like champions tonight. Dylan Darling, we're trying to represent New York and make New York proud. Shout out to about the 500 Johnny fans that were in the stands yesterday. Long ways away. Justin and I were not in the building, unfortunately. Get us to Washington. Get us to Washington, man. Get us to Washington. I will tell you my story about potentially getting to Washington should we get there, but get us to Washington. But okay, let's do this. Justin, I'm curious. Who's your player of the game?
That's a good one. It's either Bryce or Zuby, but I have to say Zuby, even though he did not play by Rick Pitino's standards a great game. That there was a lot of work left to be done. At 14-11 and those 4 blocks, I thought were real tone setters. Those block shots, I thought he played a really solid game. Yeah, he fumbled the ball a couple of times. It was not his best game, but the fact of the matter is he owned the paint. And Hopkins a close second, 35 minutes, led the team in minutes played, an efficient 5 for 9 from the field, seemed to be making all the right plays and getting all the right rebounds at the right time. I would say them. But listen, I thought it was just a really team effort. And I don't normally say that, but this one, credit to
I
everyone.
think you're right.
Everyone showed up.
Uh, Zuby, 14 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 blocks in just 28 minutes. Like I said, I thought he played like a C-level game. And afterwards, Rick is, giving him grief and basically saying he didn't play a great game. But here's Rick on the performance, knowing that he can be better and that Zuby actually is holding himself accountable for it because the great ones know that and how much of a throwback type of player Zuby is.
He knows he didn't play great tonight. He lost a few balls in the paint. He knows he didn't play great because he's a great player, but he played good. The great ones know, and Zuby's always trying to get better. He's always talking about his teammates. He's an All-American off the court because it's all about his teammates, never about him. He's a huge throwback to what you see with young athletes today. It's never about him. It's always about the teammates. It's always about St. John's. So he's a great throwback. I'm going to miss him terribly. But he's capable of playing much better than he played tonight. But he did play good.
And Justin, here's Zuby kind of joking about his performance, but I think he's serious in saying that, it wasn't good enough.
I didn't play all too well today, but the biggest thing, is coming out with the win, and my teammates were, especially, Bryce Hopkins, everything that he was able to do on the floor tonight, something that we're going to definitely need, down the stretch, and Dylan Mitchell and you could go down the line with guys that, made big plays after big plays and throughout this game. So
Did have 14, 11, and 3 block shots.
that's not good enough. So
About time you said that.
So, I'm looking forward to the next game against, whoever the opponent is.
If you think that Zuby Ejiofor isn't looking ahead to Sunday night,
Oh.
Sunday afternoon, Zuby Ejiofor knows that he has to play better against Kansas. And if you are looking for the story, you want to put a storybook ending on the Zuby Ejiofor career at St. John's, this is your climax right here.
Well, hopefully not, but I know what
No,
you're talking about.
in terms of just like everything coming full circle for him against his former program, and he had nothing but great things to say about Self. Bill Self had very good things to say about Zuby Ejiofor. There's a mutual respect there for obvious reasons. I mean, you saw the article in the Athletic. Zuby at the time didn't even want to leave Kansas. It was his dad that pulled him out. And if you haven't seen that article, I strongly
Yes, please
recommend
do
going
that.
to The
Written by
Athletic.
Ian O'Connor.
Yes.
Justin, I have to point out a moment. Do you remember the Marquette game at the Garden when St. John's was up like 28 points and Zuby is sprinting fully
Yes.
down the court with the ball rolling away, and he got the rebound for the finish up 28 points, and we
Yes.
talked about that moment, right? Yesterday, St. John's is up 13-0. Zuby Ejiofor is picking up guys 94 feet. And he
Yes,
forced this
he's-
like ridiculous, like behind the back attempt from UNI.
You can't make it up. He's literally pressing like your point guard would on most teams, and he's just going the length of the floor. Not many people can deal with that. It is a gift.
And listen, the world's watching right now, right? And you know what that means is NBA scouts are watching. And when you see a big man do that in a blowout already, even though it's early, but you're seeing that shows a lot. And I saw a lot of people point that fact out. Again, a lot of people, you guys got to understand, we're not missing a St. John's basket, but the whole world's watching now. And you got all these other guys and all these fans who are watching, and they're like, whoa, Zuby Ejiofor, yeah, I heard about him, but like, whoa, this guy picks up 94 feet. That's crazy. So that was really cool to see.
And to that point, because the world is watching, just going ahead for 1 second, but it's a segue that I have to get in. You know, Darren Peterson is on Kansas, and if you have never heard the name Darren Peterson, I find that hard to believe. But the reality is,
this podcast.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So Darren Peterson is going to be a top, if not the top pick in the draft, he's going to be a top 2 pick in the draft.
Top 3 at absolute
at worst. But I say that all to say the world is watching, and you know what that means? Dylan Mitchell can make a statement on Sunday. He is going to be up against one of the most heralded players in college basketball. If he can contain, let alone shut down, but if he can contain Darren Peterson, that is his way to tell NBA scouts, I'm ready to be in the NBA, despite the fact that he can't shoot.
For sure. We're going to get to that shortly to wrap this up. Quickly, let's talk about Bryce Hopkins. Justin, Bryce Hopkins, I think, is playing the best basketball maybe of his career right now. Yes, he was phenomenal sophomore year at Providence, but right now, coming off the injury, his struggles early on and the kind of the lull. And, you know, what did we hear all year? Rick Pitino asking for him to be an alpha. Where's that dog? And my goodness, Bryce Hopkins has been unreal since the start of the Big East tournament till now, and even a little bit before that. 14.5 points per game, 7.5 rebounds per game. And he's really been Zuby Ejiofor's yin to yang, like really, really awesome. I thought that this was important and interesting from Bryce. Talked about the fast starts and the emphasis from the games and, you know, going back to the Big East tournament.
I feel like first starting off in the Big East tournament, I feel like Coach preached to us that, you know, we have to treat this like the March Madness tournament. And, you know, we have to come out fast. We can't come out lackadaisical because once we get to, you know, March Madness, it's win or go home. And I feel like that was the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing in our mindset is just coming out fast and knowing that we can't come out slow because, you know, we're only guaranteed 40 minutes every night. And we have to play like that. We can't, you know, take any plays off, and we just have to come out fast for sure.
You know, we talk about like who's going to be the Robin to Batman for Zuby, and like Bryce has really done an exemplary job of that. From the majority of the season, obviously he's the second leading scorer of the team, but I think that his play of late, his mid-range game has really improved. The way that he's been able to get to the line all season, and his rebounding, man, like that was the key. Like early on in the season, he wasn't rebounding the ball as well, and now, man, he's become such a force. He's become so much more aggressive. And listen, that's another guy that's playing for the league. That's another guy that's trying to go to the league.
It's also his decision-making, which is not going to show up on the stat sheet, but he looks so much more comfortable in the system, and he knows where his teammates are going to be, and he doesn't look like he's out on an island by himself. And obviously he is rebounding the basketball at a high level. He is playing his best basketball of the year. You know, in many ways, we said early on, this team goes as far as Hopkins can take them in the sense that they needed that other big man to step up. And obviously he and Mitchell both have in their own way, but he is in the zone right now. And I think that he's a matchup nightmare because he can play inside and out. He can go to the basket. He's strong. He gets fouled. Kudos to Bryce Hopkins. I'm going to miss him. He has embraced his role as a Johnny, and he's an ambassador for the school. And when you listen to him speak, what better face of the program alongside Zuby, the Robin to his Batman, than Bryce Hopkins?
Yeah, really, really happy with that. Osiah Sellers. Sellers is somebody that we've been kind of waiting for this like barrage of threes. Like when is that 5 3-point game that we saw early in the season, the 4 5, 5 points, the 5 threes that we saw in back-to-back games with Iowa State and Baylor. Then we saw 4 threes that were hit against like Iona and then Georgetown and Marquette. And then it's been kind of like here or there. They went cold for a little bit. But if you look back to the start of February against Xavier, he's had a bunch of games in double figures. And now, since the start of the Big East tournament, he hit 2 threes against Providence, then against UConn. He had 14 points. And then yesterday, I think there was an emphasis definitely put to tell Osiah that, hey, be ready to shoot it and get ready to go, because he went 4 of 11 from the floor. He took 9 threes and he made 3. And you know what is hilarious? Rick Pitino said, hey, that's not enough.
I was upset at him tonight in the second half. He passed up about 4 open threes. He made a good move to the basket and missed the layup, but I get upset at him all the time for not shooting his open threes. I'd like him to take 10 or 12 a game. He got 9 up, but he's open and he passes up open shots. It drives me crazy, because if a coach said that to me, I think I'd take 30.
So, Justin, Rick Pitino's pissed off at Osiah Sellers because he wants him to take like even more. And like, I get it, man. Like, this guy is a pure shooter. He's not chucking it. He's only taking it when he's kind of ready to go, and he's still passing up threes. And I just think that the game plan is clearly to be like, hey, listen, let's get Osiah more shots because we're going to need it. And you've seen an uptick in volume for St. John's in taking 3-pointers. I think that's really important going into this tournament.
Yeah, he started off 3 of 5. He missed a few down the stretch, but the reality is he's a pure shooter, and you want him to shoot. And alongside Osiah, who's obviously passed up some open shots, I'd be remiss not to mention Sannon, who went only 2 for 4 from 3, but he was taking good shots. He hits half of them. You can never fault a kid when he's a shooter who's taking good shots. I'm not talking about forcing it up with a guy in your face, but if you're open, shoot the ball, kid. Shoot the ball. And so, yeah, Osiah Sellers may have taken 9 threes. Pitino's saying now 10 to 12. Listen, if he's open, let it fly. Yeah. And if you're not, get it to somebody who is and let it fly.
Here's Rick on the 10 made threes and how important it was to the game.
Well, remember, this is a team that holds their opponents to like 28% from the 3-point line. So we just talked, when I left the locker room, I said, we know the keys to this game. We know the backboard, we know the turnovers, but the key to the game is stopping the 3 and making our threes. It's all we talked about all week, because these guys, they looked up at the board and they saw 6 guys that shoot it better than 35%. So I said, we've got to beat them at that line. We'll beat them in the other areas, but we got to beat them at that line. And the guys did. They played a fantastic first half. Second half, they held serve. They didn't play great, but they held serve and did a good job. But the first half was a brilliant performance on offense, brilliant performance on defense.
Justin, I have to shout out one more guy, Ruben Prey. I thought Ruben Prey played really, really well, really important. Went to the line 7 times, which is huge. Only made 4, but still getting to the line 7 times was important. Had 8 points, 4 rebounds in just 12 minutes. I actually think that Ruben is going to be really important for this next game against Kansas. And he said that, listen, when Zuby is resting, my job is to make sure that the team doesn't deflate. He says, I got a lot of confidence in myself when I go out there. I love that to hear from Ruben. I think that, obviously, I think he thought his role would be a little bigger this year, but he has played his role this year. And I think that only earns him more trust for next year. But I truly believe that in this matchup coming up against Kansas, where you're going to see Flory Badunga, you're going to see Bryson Tiller, 2 guys who are really solid bigs. You're going to need your entire front line, and that's going to include Ruben Prey.
Listen, like I said earlier, Ruben Prey played not only big minutes and was very productive in those minutes, but he gave Zuby the breath that he's going to need, because I think he's playing 37 minutes against Kansas. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. But when he's not in the game, Ruben Prey there can't be a drop off. I mean, you can't be Zuby Ejiofor, but you have to make it about as close to Zuby Ejiofor as you possibly can. So yeah, shout out to him. He has done this consistently throughout the year. He's getting his shoe stepped on. He's losing his shoe, but he's out there doing what he has to do. But in a sense, Northern Iowa couldn't control Ruben Prey because he got to the line 7 times in 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Johnny's hit the most threes since that January 12th Creighton game. In this one, when they made 10, so that's great to see. Two final notes about players in this game. I thought it was really important to see Ian Jackson and Josan Sanin, who didn't score in the first half. I thought it was really important for them to see some shots fall in the second half. They finished with 15 points combined, 5 of 9 from the floor. They made 3 triples combined, also added 4 rebounds and 4 assists. So again, really important for them. The last thing you would want is to see 2 of your main backcourt guys not have the confidence going into a huge game against Kansas that has really good guard play. So I was super excited that even though the game was pretty much in hand, that you saw Ian and Josan make some buckets. So that was really important. The other thing I will say, in the other backcourt mate, Dylan Dorling, he only had 6 points. He added 5 rebounds and 5 assists. His 3-point shot has been ice cold the last 4 games. He's 1 of 17 from deep in these last 4 games, but he is still impacting the game in other ways. So while it's frustrating to see him miss these threes, listen, the last time this was happening, he did a little quick 2-day shooting session with Rick Pitino. I think it's time to get into the lab really quick, see if we could do something there, maybe get another arc session. But that was that's just something that's a little, obviously frustrating and annoying. But I think Dylan Darling, well, even though he isn't hitting the 3, that yes, he is still contributing. So those 3 guys just wanted to touch on.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I think I echo all those sentiments. We know what happens when Darling hits shots. He becomes a dynamic player, but even when his shot isn't falling, he's impacting the game in so many ways. Good to see Sanin and Jackson get into it in the second half. And now we look ahead, because there's a matchup looming on Sunday afternoon, which is a marquee matchup featuring 2 of the most storied college basketball programs in history. I will let you cue it up and kind of set the table for what this means. But listen, Johnny's fans, this is why we've been watching St. John's basketball over the decades. It's the opportunity to take down a program like Kansas, get to a Sweet 16, and see where it goes from there. But it's not going to be easy, because Kansas is a very good basketball team.
No, and they are a good team, but what I will say is that going into this game, you have 2 teams, I think, that are trending somewhat in different directions. All right. Kansas played Cal Baptist last night. They were the 4 seed playing the 13. Kansas won 68-60. Now, the game wasn't really in jeopardy, but they gave up an 18-2 run to Cal Baptist to erase a 26-point lead and make it 6, and it got tight at the end there. So while you can argue that Kansas obviously won the game, did they really win or did they survive? I don't think it gives you the warm and fuzzies if you're Kansas going into the game. I'm seeing a lot of Kansas fans losing their minds right now. I don't blame you. I think if I was in their shoes, I'd be pretty damn frustrated in a game against Cal Baptist, who respectfully you should beat the brakes off of, and you only win by 8. Now listen, now it's Kansas St. John's. Everybody kind of predicted that this would be the second round matchup. Did you know that this is only the second time that Rick Pitino and Bill Self are ever going to be playing each other? How is that possible? These are 2 guys that have combined for 1,755 wins, and Sunday's going to be just the second time they played each other. The first one came on November 28th, 2021, when Kansas beat Iona by 13 points, 96-83. Your game plan here is simple, and Justin touched on it at the beginning. Dylan Mitchell on Darren Peterson no matter what. I think maybe you don't even switch that. You let 4 other guys switch, and you keep Dylan Mitchell on him completely. Darren Peterson has obviously had his cramping issues all season. He is somebody that is a high volume shooter. Yesterday, he missed his first 7 shots of the game, but he still finished with, I believe, 28 points in the game because he went 11 for 24 the rest of the way. He's a high volume shooter. He does things on that court that make you go, holy shit. This guy, he looks like Kobe out there. That's his comparison. Everybody looks at him, the way he shoots it, the way he moves, he looks like Kobe. And he is an incredible talent. He's an incredible shot maker. The way he moves with the ball, his off the dribble stuff, his footwork is elite. There's a reason why he's being talked about as the number 1 pick in the draft. So that's going to be huge. The front court is where this game is going to be really interesting. Flory Badunga is one of the best bigs in the country, and he's more known for his defense. How does Flory Badunga and Zuby Ejiofor match up? Will there be any kind of foul issues there? Will they try to get each other into foul trouble? And if that's the case, who can survive that? And I think that favors St. John's tremendously because St. John's front court is built to outlast. There is nothing Kansas has in their front court after Flory Badunga. Bryson Tiller's going to be playing the four. There's nothing else that they're going to be able to accomplish. So I think that is a point of emphasis. So we'll see what happens with St. John's there. All right. Melvin Council has shown a lot of flashes this year. Somebody that some people around here might know. He's a local kid. All right. He was actually, St. John's recruited him. So that's a guy he's had flashes, but he didn't play well against Cal Baptist. Bryson Tiller only had 6 points against Cal Baptist. Flory Badunga only had 6 points against Cal Baptist. You're not going into the game if you're Kansas in this like super confident manner. Yes, you won, and that's what matters. But like if we're talking about confidence going up against St. John's, I guarantee you Bill Self right now is going to be racking his brain trying to figure things out. Now he's a legendary coach and he's awesome, but that is I think where just the start of this game is because Kansas has been really inconsistent this year. And I know I'm going long here, but like just hear me out here. Kansas has been inconsistent, especially the last like 2 months of the year. So which Kansas is showing up? They have 4 losses since the end of February, including a blowout to Cincinnati and a loss to Arizona State, who just fired Bobby Hurley. So which Kansas are you getting? Is it the one that beat Houston by 13? Or is it the one that lost to Houston by 22? Is it the one that beat Arizona, or is it the one that got blown out by Iowa State? You got 2 teams that are going in the opposite direction.
I hear what you're saying, but because they have the ability to beat anyone.
Oh yeah,
it's a scary game. It's a scary game. I am not the coach. I don't pretend to be. I'm not a basketball coach, but I would pound the ball to Zuby inside early and often. I would try to use our depth to our advantage inside, and I would go to the basket. And if it's not there, shoot the ball, fellas, like we were saying earlier. Shoot the ball if you've got an open look. But otherwise, I start Zuby at the top of the key, and I work him inside and try to get their bigs into foul trouble because that is where we can dominate them. And if you contain Peterson and he doesn't go off for an efficient 35, I like their chances in this one.
It could also be a game plan of, all right, you can let Peterson get his and just don't let anybody else contribute much either.
As long as it's not an efficient
he hasn't really been efficient all year.
It isn't, but I'm saying if you want to take 30 shots and you're going to score 30 points, that's one thing. Right. But I don't want to see 18 for 22 from the field. That's going to kill you. So my point being, they have weapons, but I don't think it's a terrible matchup for them or for us, I should say.
Oh, it certainly is not.
And that's why. Listen, we may be the 5 seed. Vegas has us a favorite in this game. Small favorite.
St. John's a 3-point favorite going into this game. I see the line moving a little bit. I saw 4.5. It moved to possibly 2.5, so it's moving. Again, 2 teams moving in different directions. St. John's hasn't trailed in a game since the 2:01 mark of the regular season finale at the Prudential Center against Seton Hall. That's 182 minutes and 1 second ago. That's 3 weeks ago. Since the UConn loss, St. John's is 7-0. And has the number 2 team efficiency in the country per Bart Torvik. You've heard me say this a few times. I wouldn't want to play St. John's right now if I'm an opponent. And I could not have more confidence in this group right now. I really couldn't. All these people that are picking St. John's before the first game to go to the Final Four, to go to the Elite Eight, a lot of that is coming from people thinking that they were underseeded as a 5. But like, if you've really been paying attention like we have, man, who's playing better basketball than St. John's right now in the entire country? There's a lot of confidence going into this game, and you need that. Justin, you brought up the Ian O'Connor article earlier about Zuby Ejiofor and Andy Filacek and the story of theirs. Now, I hope you guys were able to read that. It's an amazing article and a glance into the family and their struggles and what it took to get here. What I'll tell you is that it's not even the half of their actual story, which is incredible when you read that because you'd be like, what the hell? But in that story, it talks about Zuby and his exit from Kansas. Hunter Dickinson announces that he's coming back to Kansas. Zuby is in class. Andy rents a U-Haul in Dallas, drives it up to Kansas, packs Zuby's stuff while he's in class, and says, let's go, we're out of here. They have a meeting with Self, and ultimately they make a decision. Now, Bill Self said some things to Andy and Zuby on his way out. And he said, he's like, listen, I don't think you're starter quality. I don't think you're good enough. Let me make one thing very clear. Zuby Ejiofor is saying the right things publicly. He always will, because that's the kind of guy that he is. But if you don't think for one freaking second that Zuby Ejiofor doesn't want to make a statement on Sunday at 5:15 and leave that game not only with a win, but with like 28 points and 14 rebounds and 6 blocks and something audacious and like 6 assists, he wants to win. I guarantee you that. The other thing is, I don't think he's going to let St. John's lose this game. That's the other thing. You could say it's not personal, but man, I know he knows how that ended. I know he remembers that. I know the family remembers it. There was a chance that St. John's could have played Kansas last year. Instead, they got Arkansas. So I know back then the family was like, oh, can we get Kansas again? Now you got it. This is the 15th matchup between Kansas and St. John's in program's history. Kansas leads the series 9-5. St. John's has not beaten Kansas since December 30th, 1987. I wasn't
Remember that
born
one?
yet. No, I was not born yet.
Oh, okay.
Somehow, Justin, Pitino and Self, who are 2 of 3 active coaches that have won multiple NCAA tournament championships, have only faced off twice. Like, how these guys have been coaching forever. They've only faced twice before. That's pretty crazy. And that's where we're at. Justin, the Rick Pitino effect. You know how long we went without an NCAA tournament win. And in year 3, Rick Pitino has gone back-to-back tournament wins. It's the first time St. John's is advancing to back-to-back second rounds since 1999-2000. Between 2000 and 2024, there was 1 NCAA tournament win, and in the last 2 seasons, there's 2. That's crazy, and
those wins were not close.
Yeah, and
they were blowouts.
First 4 games against Arizona State and getting killed by Gonzaga. What's on the line at 5:15 on Sunday at CBS? St. John's with a chance to go to the Sweet 16 for the first time since 1999. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. You know who's really licking their chops and is super excited right now? Adidas. How about your new flagship program and your like main flagship program going up against each other? I'm curious if they're going to put something out before tomorrow. But
only thing Adidas wanted was to see this in a Final Four, but I digress. This is a big one for them, but they're getting a team in the Sweet 16 again. Obviously, Kansas has been there many times. Perhaps it's our turn.
Yeah, let's do it. 5:15 p.m. CBS for the entire world to watch on Sunday for a chance to go to the Sweet 16. It's Bill Self. It's Rick Pitino. It is Darren Peterson against St. John's defense. It is Zuby Ejiofor against Fleury Bedunga and Zuby Ejiofor against his former team. The storylines are plenty. And basketball glory is on the line, and basketball lore and history for St. John's is on the line. Let's continue this magical run. Does St. John's have what it takes? I think they do. Justin, you think they got it?
St. John's is going to win this game.
You're damn right they are. Johnny Nation, that's 1 down. There's 5 more to go. That's the mission. And it continues at 5:15 on CBS in San Diego tomorrow. It's the 5-seed Red Storm against the 4-seed Jayhawks. Let's throw the ball in the air. He's Justin Kramer. I'm David Barrow. This is the Iron Storm podcast. We're in the NCAA tournament. March Madness, baby. Let's get it going. Johnny Nation, I thank you as always. We'll catch you next time.